Alright guys, no lie, it took me 3 separate times of watching Attack on Titan before I truly understood what in the world was going on in that show. Between the reasons why the people were stuck in the wall, the gradual discovery of the 9 shifting Titans, the Marleyans and the Eldian conflict, the mystery of the founding Titan and why that was so important, and the mystery of the wall itself, it was just way too much information for me to process on my first time watching. Is it because I'm getting old and I just can't keep up no more? Probably. But I would like to think it's more because the show is just so well written with a plot that had so many meticulous and intricately woven connections in it that you really had to pay attention to understand it. Most of the typical shows out there usually just uses your basic hero's journey in which after the protagonist gains whatever power the show writers want him or her to have, and they slowly creep up in power, usually defeating whatever enemy they come across with varying difficulty. Not with AOT, oh no. Because even after Eren unlocks his Attack Titan form, the road to his eventual journey's end came with it tons of setbacks, losses in battle, and the losing of multiple friends and comrades, betrayals, inner conflict with himself, and a slew of other problems that can't simply be fixed by him turning into Titan form and smashing things up by himself. The showrunners really wanted to show that even though he gained his new powers, that it would not be enough to overcome all the trials he would have to overcome in his future. Also, if he was to push forward and try to reach that goal that he set himself on to kill all Titans, then he definitely wouldn't be doing it by himself and would have to rely on his friends and comrades. Which was a welcoming turn of events to other titles in which everybody else becomes increasingly useless as the story progresses and only the protagonist can do anything of value. So with that being said, like I said earlier, I was still relatively lost when it came to really knowing what was going on during my first watch. So I told myself to sit back and enjoy the show for what I could understand, which was a story of the island of Paradise struggling to survive against a force looking to destroy them for some unknown reason at my time of watching. There were only 2 seasons out when I first started watching Attack on Titan, so when I got to the end, I couldn't help but feel like I wasted 2 seasons worth of my time completely wasted. Why? Because none of the questions I had at the time were anywhere near close to being answered. And there were a lot of questions, trust me. Why did Reiner and Bertolt want Eren so badly? Why did Connie's mother become a Titan? Where did this Beast Titan come from? And so many more. And I would have to wait, I didn't know how long before the next season was out to maybe find out. So I decided to just pack my bags and move on to watch other anime that I knew was at least complete to wash out the bad taste of the AOT mystery. And after a while, it just slipped to the back of my mind, forgotten in a wave of other shows. So after an unknown amount of time, when the first half of the final season was airing, it was starting to get a lot of attention in the anime community about how great it was, so I decided to bite the bullet and pick it back up again. So I went back to the beginning of season 1, just so I could have the first 2 seasons fresh in my mind for when I eventually got to season 3. And after reaching the end of season 2 again, the show still left me with the same original unanswered questions of why all this was going on, and that I hoped season 3 would start to answer. Though I'm glad I rewatched the first 2 seasons, because instead of being totally enveloped in the action or just trying to keep up with all the information thrown at me, like all the new faces and names that you gotta know or remember, or what part of the story they play to, the differences of the military units of the scouts, military police, and the garrison unit, I was actually able to pay more attention to the individual characters and their contribution to the society that they lived in and the role they played in the story. And although it didn't help me answer any of the questions I had on why all this carnage was happening in the first place, it did allow me to have a much better understanding of who did what and why when it got revealed in the 3rd season. So now I finally reached the 3rd season, and this, boys and girls, was my favorite season by far. This is where the bulk of information that explained the story for my understanding came from, with every episode answering a whole slew of unanswered questions that I had before, all the while leaving behind all new questions I wanted to know, along with the fact that the battles that also took place between the Titans and the people inside the wall were an absolute work of art, but also came with it a full plate of political battles, backstabbing, the government lies being exposed, and the basement finally, the basement. I mean, we've been doing so much other stuff in the meantime that I totally forgot about the basement by the time they mentioned it again. I won't lie. And without ruining it for other people who haven't watched it yet, but towards the end of season 3, something dramatic took place that brought back that itch of excitement that you almost forget when you watch as much anime as I do. I wanted to know why. Pause the story for a bit and let me ask you something. You ever watch enough anime that you can basically guess the whole story or any hidden plot elements it may have and just go to Wikipedia just to confirm your suspicions? Well, that's something I do, because if more than 85% of my suspicions are right, then I usually just stop watching the show, because it's usually not doing anything different that I haven't seen before in another title. Not this one, boys and girls. I took off work. I was so excited to immediately start the next season. But anyway, back to the story. Like I said, the end of season 3 left me wanting to know why. And there were a few things that happened that had me already ready to immediately just dive into season 4. The first being that reaction that Eren had when he kissed Historia's hand, the hometown of our antagonist, and that one line Kruger said to Grisha when he mentioned Armin and Mikasa. I ain't gonna lie, that had me like, what? So now, on to the first half of Season 4. We are finally taken to the country of Marley, in which the enemy of Paradise lives. We are introduced to a war that the Marleyans are in with the Mid-East Allied forces. We got new characters are introduced into the story. We see the human forms of the Cart Titan that we saw at the end of Season 3, and the new Jaws Titan, which, if you remember, Ymir had, so that's food for thought, and a mysterious injured soldier that pops up every now and then. If I had to be honest with myself, though, this was not as good as the previous 3 seasons when I got to the end of it. Even though most of my final questions were finally answered and the reasons on why all this conflict was still going on, it didn't distract from the feeling that they were all kind of petty reasons, saddled along the fact that Eren's personality did a 180. Some of the new characters seemed to be forced into the limelight when they really had no real reason to be there, or even alive for that matter, with all the stuff that's going on, outside of just being candidates for the next shift in Titans. But even with all that said, the first half of Season 4 was still great, but not on the same level of the 3 seasons previously released. Maybe when the second half of Season 4 ends, maybe that'll change. So, after taking a break for a while, the second half of Season 4 started airing. I don't like waiting episode by episode on something I like, so in order to let the episodes build up, I decided to go back to Season 1 and do one big recap on everything to once again get everything fresh in my mind for the second half of the final season. So I decided to rewatch everything for a third time. And I have to say that this was the best and most enjoyable time that I had watching Attack on Titan. With my first time, I was just knowing the names, watching the action, and being generally lost with all the information given and also not given. The second time, I was able to pay more attention to the supporting characters and cast, more of reading between the lines on the character dialogue, and understanding a little bit of the character interactions. And with the third time, it seemed like things just clicked into place. I had a solid understanding of who each character was, what their importance to the story based on their title or position was. I had a better clarity of the story and why the characters were doing the things they were doing, and finally answering the questions that I had by being able to find all the small intricate details in the story that, at least for me, really made AOT pop and be as amazing as it is. To see how even the most minor characters you wouldn't even think twice about on your first watch, and how the little things they do have such a big impact on how it guides the story in the direction that it does based on the past actions that they did. And after watching it for a third time, it really opened my eyes on just how much effort the writers put in to include such an intricately written plot, making sure that no action was not without a monumental impact to not only the story progression, but also to add their importance to how the story got to where it was from the very start of the show. And a big example of this is head instructor Keith. Ask yourself, would Eren ever found out about his Titan powers if Keith didn't let Eren trade in his ODM belt when the first one he had was malfunctioning? But it showcases how something so small could guide the story in such a huge ways. So I'm currently watching and waiting for the season 4 second half to end. I couldn't wait for it to finish, so I just started as soon as I got to the end of the first half of season 4. So far, it has gotten a lot better. But with that being said, I think I got enough information to go ahead and rate this show. This is going to be the first show I'll be rating on here, and we will be using the all-new Yokomaniac meter to rate what I think are the 4 things a great anime should always have. And we'll come up with a final score in which we will determine its watch value. Now, the 4 things I think every anime should have is, number 1, a good plot. A plot is the sequence of events where each affects the next one through principles of cause and effect. Basically, how much of the story actually made sense based off of what happened and what's going on. Was the story well paced? Did it feel rushed? Were there plot holes all over which made the journey to the end of the show a bumpy one? Things along that nature. Number 2 is the animation. Everything ranging from character designs to the action sequences used, environmental details. Basically, how good did the show look in the different aspects while watching. Number 3 would be the wow factor. Now this is probably going to be the most subjective section in this list simply because there are many different levels of anime watchers ranging from first timers to seasoned veterans of the trade. So your opinions may differ from mine, which is perfectly fine. So just take this section as my personal take after watching more than a few hundred anime myself. But the wow factor will include how much of the story can be predicted based on the events going on. Basically, can you guess most of the story because it uses the same copy and paste story from other titles? What about the amount of plot twists you encountered? How many surprises did the show bring to you as the plot progressed? Did it leave you wanting to hurry up to the next episode and find out, or it wouldn't bother you if you didn't watch it for a week or 2? And most of all, did it leave you feeling empty inside because it's finally over and you know you won't find another one as good as what you just watched for a long while? And number 4 would be the soundtrack. Music plays a gigantic role in delivering the importance of a scene, whether it's to identify if our characters are in a positive or negative situation in battle, or to further express the emotions of sadness or excitement in a scene, or to just help establish the importance of dialogue being delivered by a character. Without a great soundtrack, a show could seriously drop in its perceived value because it provides with it an extra immersion, further enveloping you in the world of your show. And we'll take those 4 as aforementioned sections and we'll combine it into what will be called watch value. Watch value is basically the accumulation of everything all together. Basically, is this show worth your time? Could you rewatch it again? Or is it just the same old show like the rest that by the time you finished it, you feel like you could have spent your time better on a different anime? So taking into account the 4 things I think every anime should have will give us the overall watch value of a title to see if it's even worth your time to even watch. So basically the overall score of a show. As I said before, Attack on Titan made a great effort into making sure that the actions, whether they be made by a minor or major character, was not without some huge effect to the story. It had more than enough episodes, which, as of writing this, is 85 and counting. So, at no point did I feel like the story was being rushed in order to meet some episode cap. Everything made sense as it was happening, unless it had something the writers intentionally wanted to keep hidden to be revealed later in the story. After watching, I really didn't notice any plot holes, and if they were some, they were minute enough that it didn't register at all with me. With nothing to really howl about as far as this section, I'll have to give this 5 out of 5 Yoko emblems. I have to give a big round of applause to Wit and Mappa Studios for the great teams they used into bringing this incredible production to life. The huge Titan battles were beyond incredible. The choreography used in battle by the people in the ODM gear was spot on the environment between how the insides of all 3 walls looked were definitely drastic enough to basically see where you stood in society based on everything that was around. The use of the environment in battle, and even if a little silly at times, the facial expressions in the show was very dramatic. All in all, nothing to howl at here, so it's getting a full 5 Yoko emblems. Wow factor. Even though centered deep in the Shounen category of protagonist starts weak, gets some power, becomes strong, and everybody else becomes irrelevant. AOT brought with it a fresh perspective in that genre, bringing to it elements you normally only see in seinen anime. No character felt to me as if they were left behind in the shadows of our protagonists to slowly fade from our minds. You really had no clue what just might happen next, and it seemed like just about everybody had the angel of death above them at any point in time. And as plot progressed, you could be completely blindsided with a plot twist that would shake your whole world. It pulls far ahead of its fellow mates like Bleach, Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, and so on and so forth. So 5 out of 5 emblems here. Now, I probably butchered their names, but Hiroyuki Sawano and Kota Yamamoto did an absolute masterpiece when it came to the music. Now, I'm no music carnivore where I can provide some detailed analysis of a song in a show, but I could tell if a soundtrack fits the show and if it also portrayed what a scene was going for at the time. And AOT did not skimp out in this section either. Full 5 Yoko badges here too. Now, though it may have minor flaws here and there, nothing comes to mind that would stop someone from enjoying this anime if they decide to pick it up, or even get added value out of this if they decide to watch it again. Combining the very turn-bending plot, the up-to-date animation styling, the ability to get shocked when something new is revealed, and the amazing soundtrack to bring the level of joy to new heights, I'm giving AOT the title of the breaker of chains for not following anime rules of letting the enemy finish transforming before you attack. Everybody knows that, Aaron. Goku knows it. Naruto knows it. Just about any other Shounen protagonist knows it. Gosh. But anyway, Attack on Titan gets the final score of 5 full Yoko badges. And with having 5 full badges on each subject, including watch value, it will be the first to be included into the grand order of anime, in which an anime is above all others and anointed as one of the knights of anime. But wait, who are the other 9 knights? Thank you everyone for sticking to the end of this very long assessment of AOT. Feel free to go down in the comments and tell everyone your experiences after watching Attack on Titan, and if you think I was on the money or shooting foul balls with this assessment. Also, in a one-on-one fight between 2 experienced Titan users, who do you think is the most powerful Titan? Excluding all royal-blooded founding Titans, of course. I personally think the Colossal Titan could wreck anybody in a one-on-one, no diff, especially with that nuke it can create, plus size always helps. But with that being said, if you enjoy this type of content, please click that like button to let me know. If you want to see more like this in the future, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know. This is Shogun Okami, wanting to wish you a great rest of your day or night. Until next time, later.